Hi, Santa.
Hello. Sorry, I wasn't sure which way he was supposed to go.
Oh, what happened to the alpaca?
Oh, it's here. I'm sorry. I can take both. I'll put him here. I'll take the alpaca here.
Okay, sounds good.
How are you today?
I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling better. Yeah, surprisingly, I'm not that stressed. Like, usually on Sundays, I'm very stressed for the upcoming day.
That's me.
Yeah, but today I'm not for some reason.
That's good, especially because the new semester starts tomorrow.
Yes. Maybe I'll like get those last minute nerves though. Who knows? How about you?
I don't think it's nerves either. I think just because at this point you kind of know everyone, so I don't think it's really much nerve wracking.
That's very true. Like, you know everyone who's in your classes at this point.
Yeah, so I think it's just more about the workload and stuff like that.
Yes, and I think we've both gotten pretty used to the workload. Like, it just keeps coming and there's no break.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, so I think we should move towards introducing this episode.
As we both know, the I think the season finale of the Percy Jackson show on Disney Plus, it came out last Tuesday.
Yes, and I think I can speak for both of us when we say that we both enjoyed the show pretty well.
I think it was a really good runner up to the books, and I'm happy it was a better remake than the movies.
Yes, and we'll definitely get more into detail about the differences between the book and the movies and the show. But I think I also really liked how like accurate they were in most scenes, and I'm excited for the following seasons because I know a lot of them have been confirmed.
Me too, especially because I think the actors for the main trio, I think they've done a pretty good job encompassing these characters. So I'm excited to see how that works later on.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of marketing for the show too.
Also, we forgot to mention, but we got mics and we're on video.
Yes, this is like our first episode on video, so we hope it goes well.
Yes, I think the mics, it was kind of an interesting decision because I was under the assumption that you could put it on your shirt, which is what the clips are for. But I think, I don't know, maybe I'm not doing it right, but we tried it out and it didn't work too well for us. So we're just gonna hold it for the time being until we figure things out.
I think it looks quite funny with us just holding these tiny little mics.
I agree. I hope that that's an investment they pay off.
Yeah. Okay, so for the introducing the Percy Jackson series, it has a 7.3 IMDb rating. So what do you think about that? Do you think it like accurately represents the show's quality?
I liked it. I'm not really sure, honestly. I feel like because I definitely agree with a lot of the reasons why people do like it, but I can see at certain points why some people don't like this show. But I think for the most part, it was a pretty good adaptation of the books, especially when you compare it to the movies. What about you?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I like that Rick Riordan was really involved in this whole process because he was involved with the casting and the writing. So that was really great. We got to see like the books come to life.
I remember I saw this like he on his website or something, he posted back when the movies came out a letter to the or maybe he didn't post it on the website, but his letter to the producers and writers of the movie came out and he was I think what he was saying was something about how he was not really happy with the turnout of the movies and he didn't have that many creative input. So I'm happy that he got that this time.
Yeah, and I also heard like with the movies, he didn't expect them to go far. So I'm glad he got this like second chance at readapting it.
I'm really happy for him as well.
I also think with a series, it gives like much more time for I guess all the scenes to accurately portray the books because with movies it's just so condensed.
I agree, especially because I feel like for a lot of these book to movie adaptations, a lot of stuff in the book is kind of left out in the movie. Like, do you remember this other episode we were talking about how The School for Good and Evil, it was a movie, but it might have worked better as a series?
And I would have loved to see it as a series because I think there were so many like tiny little details that kind of weren't included into the movie. And if it were a series, if it like has something like the Percy Jackson where they make another show for it, that would be great.
I agree. I would be so hyped for that.
Hmm
I'm very excited to do this, just to go over it and kind of review the show. I feel like right now it's it kind of hit its peak, I feel like, quite recently. So I think it's really fun to kind of look back on everything that happened during those
Yeah, and I think it's great to
parts.
have like a discussion about this too. It helps me kind of think more clearly as well.
Okay, well, moving on to I guess the actual book. I feel like do you think a lot of the show's viewers had already read the book, or do you think it was a majority who hadn't?
I feel like, okay, I think it's kind of split in half. I'm not sure about the exact numbers, but I think that the readers of the book, they started making these like fan edits on TikTok and then like I don't know, just kind of showing their expectations or high hopes and anticipations for the show. And then that got a lot of non-readers interested. So I think there were quite a lot of non-readers who watched the show. What about you?
I agree with that. And I think it's really cool how a lot of people after watching the show, they were like, "Oh, I'm going to go read the books now."
Yes, I'm so happy it's getting even more appreciation.
Me too, but I do think it's really funny how you see some posts by people who haven't read the books on TikTok and it's like their predictions. And they would have stuff that as a book reader I would kind of laugh at because I'm like, "No, this is in no way going to be true."
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, especially about their like predictions for the finale. So I think we should go kind of like over the book series
Mm.
and see how the show portrays all these scenes.
For the first Percy Jackson's book, I know that book so well. Like I feel like out of all the books, I guess because it's the first one, but I feel like the everything is laid out very straightforward. And I feel like in the show they do that well. They do that really well as well.
I agree. Like while watching the show, I was just like I remembered all the scenes that were happening in the book and I was just like really impressed at how well they were capturing that.
Okay, I guess to start off with actually summing up the first book series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. It follows Percy, who is a 12-year-old boy who later finds out that he's actually a demigod.
Yeah, and his whole life is kind of uprooted because he finds out that his best friend Grover is a satyr and his mom kind of knows about all this, so it's kind of like a big reveal to him. And he also finds out that Poseidon is his dad kind of early on in the book. So, continuing with the plot of the series, Percy finds out that he's like one of a son of the big three, which is Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades. And since he's Poseidon's son, and there's kind of this rivalry between Poseidon and Zeus, Zeus thinks that he's stolen his lightning bolts because it's gone missing.
I think that that is such an interesting plot. Like when I first read the book when I was younger, I thought that was such a fascinating idea to go with Greek mythology because usually they just kind of stick to the traditional sense of the stories. This kind of took a new turn, so I really liked that.
Yes, and I think this was my first introduction to Greek mythology, so I was really interested. I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube afterwards just to learn more about it. And I loved learning about it. I think all the stories are quite interesting.
I agree, and also Roman mythology too, which I guess is introduced later in Percy Jackson's as well.
I forgot about that, but I love how they introduced the Roman mythology too, because
Mm.
it's kind of like these contrasting personalities for all the gods and goddesses. And I liked how they played around with that. Okay, so continuing with the plot once again, Percy has to go on a quest because he's chosen, since he's also supposed to find the lightning bolt, and he chooses Grover and Annabeth to go alongside him for the quest.
And he gets told by the Oracle that he'll be betrayed by someone who he is close to, essentially.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard about like the Oracle's warning, I was just like I was tense for that whole book. I was trying to figure out what it meant, who it was. Do you remember who you thought it was? Like the traitor.
Honestly, I had no idea. I really thought it was going to be Grover or Annabeth.
Me too. I thought it was gonna be one of like those three, and it was gonna be like an ultimate betrayal.
Me too. And I guess it was an ultimate betrayal, but in a different way than we had thought.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what a lot of non-readers thought as well. Like one of the big three. Because I saw quite a lot of people saying that it was Grover or something.
Oh, I saw a lot of that as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I thought it was Grover too when I was first reading it.
Me too. So I guess it's a bit unfair to kind of look back at the non-readers and be like, "Oh, you should have known." But
Yes, I'm just glad they're like reading the series now too. Like it's such a special series to read when you're a preteen, but also now it still applies, I think.
now that we've kind of recapped the summary of the series, I feel like we can talk about the anticipation of the show because I remember the anticipation for the show when it was announced was really high. I think a lot of people were divided though on how this would turn out initially.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing a lot of excitement for it. And the first time I heard about the show coming out, I think it was from TikTok because I saw a lot of people making comments about it and how excited they were.
I saw that as well, and also I saw so many people like trying to figure out who is casting who, and I remember I think someone figured out that before they announced the cast, some of the cast members by looking through like people's followings, like the already confirmed actors, like all of that. They were just able to find out people who would later be announced to be casted, and I was very invested in that.
That's quite impressive to figure out the whole casting.
Right?
I think while I was waiting for the show, I was just like really scared of how it would be adapted. Because as we're gonna get into later on with the movies, I was like a bit disappointed with how it wasn't accurate at all. So I was scared that like a precious series from my childhood wouldn't be reenacted good enough.
Do you think that the movies? I guess we'll go into that later, but do you think the movies what was this a disappointment then very clearly? Because I know some people liked it, but did you for you was it just fully dislike or
Actually, like the first time I saw it, it was at a friend's birthday party. And so I had already read the series by then. And I don't know, I kind of liked it as a young kid. I feel like I didn't pay attention to what was going on and if it was accurate or not. I just liked the action parts of it. And so even as a movie on its own, I think it kind of fits in the into the whole trend of like not dystopian, but like those kind of movies at the time, very action filled with a trio as the main cast. So I think I was okay with the movies. I liked them when I was young. What about you?
my sister was obsessed with the movies and she rewatched them constantly. And I think that kind of built some inner dislike in me because we had to watch it so many times with her. But I think I didn't understand the hate either at first because I think I read the first book and then I saw the first movie and it wasn't the greatest adaptation, but it I think because at the time I was much younger, I didn't really care as much. But I think now as an adaptation, I would be like, oh, this is a lot different. Like there's a lot of differences between this and the original source material.
Yeah, especially since we grow more critical with age, I guess. So we don't really care about the tiny little details or like how accurate the characters' ages were when they were casted. Like I didn't care about any of that, and I was quite shocked to see all the hate for the movies.
I think that the guy who played Percy in the movies, Logan Lerman, I feel like he was a good Percy. I didn't like the movies that much, but I feel like he did a pretty good job of portraying Percy.
Yes, I wish they hired him. Like I wish they started filming the movies earlier, so they could have captured him when he was younger. So it would have been closer to the age of Percy in the books. Because he was like 18 when they shot the movie, right?
Oh, he was? Well, I guess that makes sense. He
Yeah,
did look a lot older.
yeah. So it didn't really fit the whole preteen vibe.
I agree, especially because there's supposed to be 12 in the books, like you said, right? Preteen. And then you, in the movie, you have these completely older characters. And I feel like a lot of the decisions and beliefs that they had, it makes more sense because they're kids, whereas if they're a bit older, it doesn't make as much sense. And I feel like in the movie, they readjusted that as well.
Yeah, and I think especially for the books, when like I read them when I was a preteen too, so I could definitely like it was quite realistic. Not the like plot of it going on, but just the conversations that were happening. I think those make sense for preteens, but not as much for old older an older age range, I guess.
I guess there's this one iconic scene from the first movie that I think is kind of the only scene that anyone actually likes from it.
Yes, and that is the casino scene. What did you think about that?
I thought it was so funny. I like it. I don't know if it. I don't remember if it was exactly. It was not book accurate, was it?
I
I just remember
yeah.
was Grover dancing with a bunch of girls. Like that's what I remember, but I don't know if that was actually in the scene.
This was like one of my problems with the movies that I kind of figured out. Grover was like a ladies guy in the movies.
I agree. They definitely turned him into like comedic relief, and then just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, but I think they did a good job at kind of capturing the like losing time aspect when they were in the hotel, the casino. So I kind of like that.
I guess that was kind of like some of the differences, right? Just from the books and the movies. And like going into the movies themselves, there's obviously a bunch of differences from the movie and the show.
I think also in the movie, something that I didn't exactly like is how they changed the personalities of the characters. I think Percy was kind of constant, like that was okay. But then, like we said, Grover was kind of like a whole different person. And Annabeth was kind of more like Clarice was supposed to be in the books. Like she's how I imagined her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see that. So I think like because we talked about the differences between the movie and the book, I think that based on all of these shortcomings, people like including me were really hoping that this adaptation would be really good and really stand out.
Yeah, I think something that completely like separated it from the movies when I first saw it was the ages of the cast, obviously. I thought the casting was quite good for the role. And like it was clear that it was much for a younger target audience, I guess, since that was what the book series was intentionally meant for.
So right, and that's why I was so happy when they announced the cast and they were actually the ages of the characters, or at least very close to it.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the readers who like read the Percy Jackson series, they're kind of grown up like our age range now or maybe a bit older. But I think that the show you can watch it at any age, I guess. Like I watch it with my mom and she seemed to like it too. So I think I don't I've heard like a few complaints about how it's usually for the younger target audience, but I also see how it applies to a much larger age range that people give it credit for.
I agree. I think I heard some people say that the humor it was a bit too childish, but at the same time, it is kind of directed towards kids and families in a way. So I do get that.
Yeah, and like the dialogue in the original books, it was supposed to be childish. So I think that's something they did well, actually. Like they accurately portrayed all the dialogues. And a lot of the dialogue came directly from the book, too. So I think there can't be any complaints about that if we want a book accurate adaptation.
I agree. I feel like for the most part, any changes that they did make, it was beneficial, which I guess we'll get into later. But I feel like any changes that they made, it helped with telling the story as a show.
Yeah, I actually liked a lot of the changes they made.
I guess because they're already talking about how the show already coming out. I feel like also the cast was like doing in interviews and stuff. They were all really great and charismatic.
Yes, when I was watching it, I thought that they were all really great for their roles. I don't know if this was something intentional, like they were trying to do that, but they all fit their roles pretty well. Like Walker playing Percy, he's very sarcastic, I guess, and then Leah, who's playing Annabelle, she's yeah, like she's very witty and smart, and Aryan as well. Like they all have a great cast chemistry, and I like how they seem like they're friends. I'm sure they are. Like I think they just do a good job of portraying the trio in real life.
Have you seen the TikToks where people are like, what I would do to be in the Percy Jackson cast friend group? I think those are really because clearly you can see the chemistry there between the cast and their friendship, and I feel like that kind of adds to people watching the show because you see these people have such a close friendship in interviews and in like behind the scenes and all that.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about this. I was looking when in the first stages of my watching the show, I was like really impressed with how young all the actors were and how they were still like portraying the show so well. So I went on Rick Riordan's site and I was looking at like casting to see if I could like get an audition for fun. And then I was so disappointed when I saw that it was like only by agency because the first season it was open casting. And then Rick Riordan had like a little message like, oh, I find that it's more fair to have casting based on having agents already since it gives more of a chance to people like to actors who are already kind of established. So I was very disappointed.
Your
But it's also
actor
being
dreams got crushed.
yes, but it's being filmed in like British Columbia, which is close enough, I guess.
Oh yeah, true, because we live in Canada.
Yeah, so I was like, maybe I have a chance.
Oh, I'm very sorry you not get to live out your actor dreams.
That's okay, but this is like why I see why there was so much excitement. I think just the chemistry between all of the actors on set, they do such a good job at that it makes other people want to be a part of the show with them.
I had no idea also that they did open casting for season 1. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think most of the actors who got their roles were through like people who had agents though. Because Rick's like mentioned, of a lot of the people who were at open casting typically did not receive the roles. So that's why we're sticking to people who are already kind of established.
I guess that does make sense
Yeah,
from
it does make
a
sense.
point, like a show running point. But I guess for us as aspiring, who just want to be like on the
Yes.
set,
I would just like to be an extra. Like that's all I want. To be in the background.
I wouldn't even want to be in the background. I just want to be on the set and watch
Yes,
from
like
afar.
helping out with the set would be so fun.
That would be so fun. But I guess at least it's going to people who are in the industry. You know, I'm glad, I'm
Yes.
happy they get a chance to stand out and have their moments.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I thought was really interesting was in the show, at least in the reception towards it, right? Maybe this was just me, maybe I was the only one who saw this, but did you also like, there was a lot of hype for the beginning episodes, and then as it went on, there was, at least for me, I saw more criticism against it. Like, it wasn't really that noticeable for the first couple, and then the more episodes that got released, the hate got a lot stronger.
Yes, I definitely noticed that. Like, I remember one day I was just like waking up, looking through my TikTok, and then I see all these like, oh, why is the show like getting worse? Blah blah blah. Like all these comments on it, and I was like, where did this all come from? I was just really shocked. Like it was such a change.
Me too, and it felt like a lot of the stuff that people were praising in the beginning, it was kind of like being used against the show now.
Yeah, like one major thing I noticed is that everyone was really happy that it was like age appropriate casting for the Bucks, but then now I feel like that's kind of being used against the actors because everyone's like, oh, there's not a lot of like chemistry between Annabeth and Percy, though this is like a children's kind of thing, right? Like it's supposed to be innocent. There's not supposed to be that much chemistry, and like in the first book, it's just like all leading up to the fifth book, right?
I feel like people are expecting a bit too much from Percy and Annabeth in the first season, because in the books, yes, there is like already little signs and stuff, but they only really become friends in the first series, and they're friends for almost the entire first series until the end of the last book. Like that's literally when things change. So I feel like it's so like they don't need to have intense chemistry in that way in season 1 a lot, because you have 5 more books for, or like 4 more books for that.
Yes, and like one thing that was really important for the Percy Jackson series in the first place is that it was kind of like the audience was like frustrated with the characters for not like knowing what they're feeling about each other. It was just like building all up to that moment. So it took like such a long time. So it really does make sense that there's not a lot going on in the first season because that's kind of supposed like that's what it's supposed to be, I guess.
I've seen so many edits where I'm like, I'm so hyped for this, I'm so hyped for Percy and Annabeth, but at the same time, there's still so much they have to go through. Like, there's still so much to go before we actually get to any of that stuff. So again, it's really funny to see non-readers who are like, oh, I predict that Percy and Annabeth will get together in season 2, because it's like, oh no, you have to suffer like the rest of us did for 5 books.
Yes, it's definitely like a very slow burn. And I think most of the important moments that lead to them kind of building up that relationship, they happen in the other books.
Mm.
So You can't expect too much from this first season.
The season finale, what did you think?
I think that um I noticed one change they had is I guess wait, is this allowed to have a spoiler? If you didn't like finish the show, please go out of this timestamp. But okay, so I think one thing they changed is that Luke, he's kind of regretful in the series because in the book, it's kind of like he did it and he doesn't regret it. Like he just wants, he's kind of selfish, I guess. That's kind of what he's painted as. But then in the series, he's like in the series finale, he's telling Percy that he didn't mean for like Grover to be injured or something. And well, it's kind of sad for Percy because Percy's like listening to him saying how much he doesn't care about Percy, kind of, but he cares about Grover, which makes sense. But also, like, it shows that Luke has kind of a backstory to him that, like, it was nice as an audience to see. What about you?
I agree on the Luke part. I think also because he is 19 years old, so I guess in both ways, I guess he could have known better, but he's still 19 years old, right? So all those resentment and feelings as a teenager and as a kid from his dad and feeling cast aside, that's still there.
Yeah, definitely. I also think throughout the series, I was empathizing more with Luke than I did in the books. Because when I found out, like, the betrayal in the books, I was just, like, really angry, and I disliked him completely. Then in the series, that kind of changed. So I guess they added more of a backstory that you can empathize with.
I see that really well. And I also think that Percy and Ares, that fight, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. What I disliked about the movies was that Ares wasn't even included as like a character, so I liked how accurate they were with that in the show.
I think towards like reception towards the finale, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like I've heard really good stuff. I've also heard like some stuff that people wish had changed, but I've heard mostly good things.
It was kind of a roller coaster. Like the beginning, it was like, I don't know, at its height, and then throughout the middle of the show, kind of like climbing down, and then back at the finale, I see a lot of edits going up again. So I don't know what to think about what people are thinking of the series. I guess with the finale, they did a really good job because they built up all this tension, and it's kind of like a good ending. So you still have a lot to look forward to in season 2.
Definitely, and I'm really excited to see when they introduce Talia.
I've always thought of it as Talia.
Me too, but I'm honestly not sure. Talia? Okay. I'm excited to see who they cast to play Talia and how that works out.
I've seen a lot of like fan casting, and I know it's like never true, but it seems like they're going in a good direction.
Who were people fan casting?
I don't know any of their names. They just like, I think they fit their roles very well from what I've seen. Do you know of any?
I don't know any, but I don't know. I'm just excited to see if, well, I guess it won't be open. It's not open auditions anymore. So
unfortunately,
maybe it'll be someone who we know, like a famous person. Like
yes,
yeah, that we could have been had we been forced into child acting.
Maybe it's someone from our art school. So like, if it is, like very good on them. So considering like all the mixed reviews that this show is getting, what do you think about season 2? Like, are you excited? What are you looking for in season 2, I guess?
I am excited for season 2. I feel like I don't have that much feedback, personally. I feel like one thing is that I hope we explore the characters a bit more and their personalities and their interests, like how Annabeth has this huge interest in architecture. Like, I hope we learn a bit more about them in that way. But I don't really have any other feedback. I just enjoyed the show. Did you have any?
I think, like you said, I really want to see more of their backstories and backgrounds. Like, I know this was already kind of explored in the beginning episodes for Percy Jackson, but like Annabeth's relationship with her mom is just like so strained and it has so many dynamics. I would like to see more of that. And then I would like to see more about Grover too. Like, he was my favorite character in the book series when I was reading it, and I like him in the show too, so I want to see more about him.
I feel like in the beginning and at the end of the show, he did get a lot of good moments, but I feel like in between,
he's just there sometimes.
Yeah, so I hope that we get to see more about him.
Yeah, I agree. I also think Maybe one thing I would, sorry, maybe one thing I kind of wish to change, not change, but like improve on, is the pacing of the books. I know, of the show. I know that there's a lot they have to fit in, but since it is like a 40-minute episode, I think they can make the conversations kind of flow more naturally. I'm like, this is just the pilot season, so I'm sure everything's bound to improve in season 2.
Definitely. Something I feel like it's not necessarily the case with this show because there's already so much, the books are already so successful and there's already so much hype around it. But I feel like with other shows, because of streaming, if the first season is not this huge commercial success and it's not talked about everywhere, they'll just cancel it. But a lot of shows, they weren't necessarily like super incredible in the first season, or they weren't necessarily like the most watched show of the year, but they got better over time, and that's how they became a better show and had larger viewers over time, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like with The Office, the first season was not really well liked by anyone, but they continued, they got better, and now it's really famous. So I feel like with a lot of new shows now, they're canceling it after 1 or 2 seasons because, or like How I Met Your Father, right? We both liked it.
Yes, I know.
feel like there was so much potential, but then they canceled it, like a lot of other shows that they canceled.
Oh my gosh, I was going to say, while you were talking about that, I instantly thought of Riverdale and how we've, like, I don't know how many seasons. 8? 5? I don't know how many. But it went on for so long, even though the audience, like, started, like, just watching it for hate, hating on it. And I don't think the cast even liked it anymore. Like, it was completely crazy. But it went on despite all of this hate. And I think, like, that was the point after that show, the final season was released, they didn't, like, accept any shows that didn't, like, do well in their first season.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, and I'm very sad. I just wish they didn't do that with Riverdale so we could continue giving shows a better chance. Because I think for most shows, like, personally, I don't have season 1 as my favorite for any show. It's always as they progress.
And that's part of why you can't just cancel them after 1 season, because they're going to improve.
Yeah, so no one should be judging the show based on its first season, even though it's, like, already pretty incredible in my opinion.
Me too. So I'm sure it'll get renewed. I hope it gets it probably will, right?
Like, I think it already is renewed for season 2. But I don't know about the other seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. I really hope they go up to season 5.
I feel like they will. Like, I feel like for Percy Jackson, because it's so famous and the show was already so successful, they can't just cancel it after season 2, right? Like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm. One thing I would like to say, this isn't about the acting or anything. I just wish they would release them all at once. Like, please let us watch and binge watch in peace.
I like it both ways. Like, I kind of like being able to see everyone come together online to talk about an episode every week. But at the same time, streaming is for binging. This is some cable stuff that they're pulling here.
Yes, and especially with, like, cliffhangers in every episode, I would really like to see, like, I just like to watch it all in one go.
Same. I guess this is another, like, a thing I don't like about streaming. Like, how it's slowly turning into cable, basically, where it's like, oh, come back each week, when streaming was originally to avoid doing that and being able to binge shows or binge movies.
That's very true. And I also, like, I really liked all those shows with 23 episodes in one season, each 40, like, minutes. I like having all that bingeable content. And I feel like I wish they did more episodes in a season.
Me too, especially because it'll be like 3 years between a season. Mm-hmm. Whereas with older shows, it would be like each year would be a new season.
That's so true. Yeah, so I hope, like, for season 2, maybe they do at least 10 episodes. Especially since I know there's a lot of events that go on in book 2, which I'm excited to see.
Me too. I'm excited to see how Tyson is portrayed.
I love Tyson.
Me too. He's so cute. Yes. He's so sweet.
I know. He was also one of my favorite characters in the books.
Mine too. Is there anything in particular you're looking for? Like a particular way of portraying a character, or like a particular plot point or anything? It can be for, like, later seasons too, but just in how it's portrayed in the show.
I think, this is something some people have mentioned before, but I am excited to see, like, the gods kind of being portrayed. Like, I want to see the Roman counterparts and how they do that. Because I know when I was reading the books, I was a bit confused on how it all worked. I don't know about you.
I hope, now that you mentioned Roman counterparts, I wonder, I guess it would be a separate show, right, for the Heroes of Olympus series? But I wonder about how that will be executed, because it's like multiple point of views, right?
Yeah.
So I think that will be very interesting if they end up continuing the saga.
I really hope they do, because I like the Heroes of Olympus series as well.
Me too, and I would love to see Percy and Annabeth portrayed like a bit later on in their lives.
And it's also nice to see like how the cast grows up along with the show.
Also, some people say that, and I kind of agree with this, how like Harry Potter, the Harry Potter kids, the Percy Jackson kids are kind of like that, where if they continue making seasons, it'll be like you kind of grow up with them. So I really hope that they get all 5 seasons, which I feel like they will. Probably will. Yeah.
Like, there's so much love for this book series and the show that it's kind of impossible not to.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think it's, like, I love this trio for the casting. I think, like you said, it's kind of similar to the Harry Potter series. And as you watch them grow up, it's really nice to see their friendship develop as well.
I had so much fun talking about this. I think the Percy Jackson show and this series, it's so nostalgic to look back to, and it's still really good to this day. Like, the books still hold up, in my opinion.
Yes, and like, it's such a great time in my life that I love looking back on it and talking about it. And it's just like nice to be able to share this with your friends. So I guess that wraps up everything we wanted to say in this episode. I hope that you enjoyed.
I hope that you enjoyed as well.
Oh, were you talking to?
I like short-circuited. I was like, wait, is she talking to me? I hope that whoever listens, they enjoyed it, and that we enjoyed it too.
Yes, I enjoyed it personally.